When you're considering spur pruning, there's an important consideration for renewing cordons. So I'm going to walk you through kind of what not to do, or some pitfalls of not renewing cordons over time. So we're in a vineyard that's 25 years old, and it was established as cordon trained spur pruned at about year 5 of its life. So it has a 20-year-old cordon here, 25-year-old trunk, and it's never really been renewed since it became a cordon. The head position is really nicely done. You've got the head below the training wire by about 4 or 5 inches is what you really ideally want, and the cordons were trained out bilaterally along the training wire. However, the unfortunate thing was when they trained these vines, they wrapped the cane that became the cordon around the wire. And if you can see here, the cordon has completely grown around this training wire. And this becomes a problem over time because it needs to, the cordon needs to be replaced, and it's almost impossible to do this without removing parts of the trellis. So you want to avoid wrapping canes around the training wire. It can be done, but only for the first year. You normally wrap that cane around, that's going to be your cordon, and you unwrap it in the second dormant season so that you can have a cordon that's stiffened but not wrapped around this wire. So when establishing a new cordon on a vine like this, it's important to leave some spurs that you anticipate renewing over time. So the vineyard manager in this vineyard wisely left behind a sucker on the trunk. So this shoot is being left and retained so that we can retrain the trunk and then possibly retrain it along this cordon. It might take a couple of years to get the trunk reestablished, or they could come through this next season and have another sucker or keep a sucker that's growing here to train out. But that's going to be an absolute necessary thing when we need to cut out big cordons like this. Previously I showed you how it grew into the wire and that we're going to renew it from a spur that's been left down here, an adventitious shoot that's now a cane that'll be retrained from much lower in the canopy. But first I'm going to start by just removing the old spurs from the canopy. We'll just cut it out just so we can make it easier to deal with. And I should really be wearing eye protection for this process, so you gotta be careful. So we have all of the upper canopy off of this. Some longer spurs are still left, but we're gonna remove this whole cordon. And in order to do this, I'm gonna actually use a power tool to make it a little bit faster process here. And whenever you're taking out the cordons, when possible, start from further back and move in. But another factor is when you're looking at diseases, it's always best to start looking from behind or the furthest end and moving towards the head of the plant. So this is an example here. We can't really cut it out very much because it's growing, the wood is growing into the wire there and pretty difficult to just cut out. So I'm going to go a little bit more towards the base here. So there's some black areas there. That could be some trunk disease, but it might also just be some necrotic areas. But it's something to keep an eye on. Most of it's pretty healthy. Now I'm going to go further down here. Yeah, so you can see some of the middle there is black, but still got a healthy circumference. And so we have this shoot here that could be used to train up the plant. Would have to extend the trunk perhaps in this first year. It wouldn't be ready to lay down as a cordon, but for a plant that has pretty old cordons, you would need to start lower. But the other important thing to point out is this is coming from above the graft unit. So in this plant, the graft unit is about right here. We can't take a spur that's coming from, or sucker that's coming from below that point.